The VO Meter, measuring your voiceover progress. Whether you're a veteran voice actor, just starting out, or don't even know how to set a level, we're here to help you avoid the pitfalls along your voiceover path to success. The VO Meter is brought to you by Global Voice Acting Academy, Fidalgo, JMC Demos, Studio Bricks, Voice Actor Websites, and Roswell Pro Audio. The VO Meter is produced in part using Source Connect made by source-elements.com. And now your hosts, Paul Stefano and Sean David.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 117 of the VO Meter,
measuring your voice-over progress. Today, we have a longtime friend of the show on. I don't know why we didn't ask earlier. Honestly, I think, like I mentioned in the interview, a little bit of intimidation because I thought she was better than me. Well, she is better than me. But we're so happy to finally have on.
That never stopped you before.
Yeah, exactly. Never stopped me before. So we're happy to have on as a featured guest, Christi Bowen.
Woo! We'll get to Christi's interview in a few minutes, but before that, it's time to talk about our VO Meter reference levels.
VoiceOver Extra brings you the VO Meter reference levels. Seriously, guys? That's the best you could come up with? Hey, it's your show.
All right, so thank you to Mike Norgard, as always, for doing that intro. Part of what I'm going to talk about is how I'll be seeing him in person again. But first, what's happening in your VO world, Sean?
Lots of auditions, some new projects. I got cast for a YouTube narration channel on basically Karens and karma, so that's fun.
Oh, cool.
Talking about people, we'll say, like, less than smart and polite behavior and then getting their comeuppance for it. So that's been a lot of fun. Just been sending out lots of auditions for various projects. Got a few book deals that I'm waiting to hear back from. On the GVA front, still doing our regular about 30 workouts a month. We've got 300 members, and we recently just had our Demystifying Digital Rates webinar with David Toback, one of the creators of the GVA Rate Guide. So keeping busy. How about yourself?
First of all, on the GVAA front, I finally got a chance to check out GVAA On Demand. As a sponsor of the show, we are also members, like the Hair Club for Men. I'm not only a member, I'm also a client or whatever.
I'm not just the president.
Yeah. So I was selfishly watching my own webinar from a couple of months ago, but it was cool to go back in the library and have access to all those past webinars as a member. And if you haven't taken advantage of that, definitely do, because it's just a wealth of information, not just me.
Why, thank you. Yeah, I mean, in case you don't know, because we do have a couple of offerings. So GVA On Demand is essentially our streaming service where you can access our full video library since our inception, pretty much. So whether you want to learn about character skills from Christina Milizia or promo sports announcing from Paul himself, then you can do that. We also have agency interviews. If you're looking to get into e-learning or audiobooks, pretty much all the main genres that you could think of, we have videos for it. Plus some other fun things like the importance of script analysis. That was a fun webinar that I did with David Rosenthal and David Toback a few years back, where we talked about the importance of having some kind of textual analysis process in your auditions and projects, but also a few different perspectives on what you can do. Like, for example, a more commercial-centric analysis where you look at your demographic and your audience, or from my perspective, which was much more linguistic because I'm an English major and a teacher, so I looked on the script itself and sort of the text clues that can give you, like what's the subject, what kind of descriptive language do they use, things like that.
Yeah, it's a wealth of information. I recommend somebody go there pretty much every week when someone reaches out to me and says, how can I get into voiceover? I always send them there, and hopefully we'll have some sign-ups.
Yeah, it's not too expensive. It's like $20 a month for the monthly subscription, and you can learn just about everything you need to about the industry, and then if that inspires you to get some more like personalized training, then you can move from there. Oh, one other thing I wanted to talk about. So I was auditioning for one client on Fidalgo a few weeks ago, and I didn't get that particular gig, but they actually reached out to me a few weeks later, and they're like, oh, hey, we loved your audition, and we have something that'd be perfect for you. So I got to be one of the characters in these sort of English language dialogues for teaching German students English. So it's really cool getting to put my teaching cap on again, and reminds me of what I was doing in Japan.
Oh, very cool. I've had some, not success, but at least traction on Bidalgo since I've been back on. They haven't. I haven't been booked, but I was shortlisted and had several likes, which hasn't happened before. So either I'm getting better or the clients are less discerning. But I think
I'd say it's probably my most successful pay-to-play that I've done. But I understand I don't know. It's an exceptional case. I think it's because of my it's ironically I get this whole it's so clean, it's so polished, it's so articulate, which is great for foreign language clients, but I really struggle with commercial and stuff like that where they don't want any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so Matthias, the audio engineer, we had a nice directed session a few days ago, and it was so nice because I would just do something, perfect. I do something else. Perfect. I do something else. And there was some minor tweaking near the beginning, but it was just a great confidence boost. And they're like, oh, wow, this guy's so good. I have nothing. So that was fun.
Yeah, I had a similar experience a couple of weeks ago. I did another session in Mexico. I think I mentioned last year I did a bunch. And this is another one. It was a similar thing where every take they were like, great, or just laughing out loud. And I was like, really? Was it that good?
That's awesome.
I literally said that one time. Is it really that funny? And they were like, yes.
Am I that good? Sure. Why not?
Yeah, I'll take it where I can get it.
Yeah, one of my favorite clients was out of Mexico, a company called Caneo, actually.
There you go. So from my standpoint on work, I just wrapped up today, actually, a book with the Twin Flame Studios. It's an author-narrated book by an author named Brianna Silver. It's called Leading Through Freefall, How Innovators Turn Turbulence into Trust. And it's a book that we kind of specialize in, the business leadership genre. It's all about how to get more out of your teams and grow your business. So that just wrapped initial production today. We'll be working on the editing and pickups over the next couple of weeks. And then narrating myself, I'm doing another book from Sophia Institute Press, which specializes in religious texts. This is the third book I've gotten through Fiverr, doing way above union rates.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is the third one from the same publisher, way above union rates. I guess it kind of balances out to union rates by the time the fees are taken into account, but I have to kind of jack up the price to have those fees incorporated from Fiverr and then also make the profit I need to. But great rates. This one's called Stronger Than Evil, The Devil, Recognizing Him, Overcoming Him, and Avoiding Him by Father Gabriel Amorth. And if you don't know who that is, he's the real-life Vatican exorcist who the book and the movie was inspired by. So it's pretty fascinating stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
That's so interesting. I was under the assumption that Fiverr stuff was on its way out. Because, there was, I don't know if people knew, but recently there was a message from the CEO where it's just protect yourselves. The AI's coming for everything.
Kind of, yeah. But so far, I'm still getting a couple jobs every couple of weeks. And I'm not complaining so far. But like I was saying, this book is fascinating to me because it's real-life stories that sound completely insane. Folks levitating off of beds, speaking in tongues, weird contortions of their bodies, and supposedly all witnessed by this real-life Vatican priest, and then helping the people to get better. So it's been pretty cool to read and listen as I listen back, and it'll be done in a couple more weeks. It's long. It's 8 hours long, so another week and a half I should be done.
Very cool. And that kind of ties into something that I've been thinking about lately, too, because it's
The devil?
Because, just the, being open to opportunities from unexpected places,
Okay.
I guess you could say. One of my, that recent gig that I got that I mentioned earlier was, from a Reddit thread. And that's also where I found those cool animated or anime motion comics that I did last month. So when you're exploring potential work opportunities, I think, you already know this, but, kind of explore everything that's out there and be open to it. And, maybe don't let the naysayers affect your your efforts too much. Make your own opinion.
Yeah, I've had jobs from the most insane places, direct referrals from kids I coach in soccer, or their parents, I should say. I've had jobs on Fiverr, on every possible online casting site you could think of. And then sometimes just talking to people at the grocery store or my kids' dance recital or band concert. Things just come up. And you have to be, it's like from Glenn Ross, Always Be Closing, ABC. If you're always thinking about how to pivot your business to the opportunity at hand, then you can find those opportunities.
Oh, that ties in nicely to our interview coming up soon. But
Well,
anything else you want to share?
I wasn't quite done. Yeah, just on the announcing front, just because it was a bit of a cool milestone. The college season is winding down, and the last thing I did was last weekend was the NCAA Division I quarterfinals for lacrosse. It was hosted at a neutral site, in this case, the Naval Academy where I work. So I got to be the announcer for Penn State versus Notre Dame, and then University of Maryland versus Georgetown, 4 pretty well-known large institutions. And because most of them were local, Maryland, Georgetown, really local, like within 10, 20 miles, and then Penn State about 3 hours away, we had a huge crowd. It ended up being the biggest crowd ever for the NCAA lacrosse quarterfinals with 17,721. And it also meant that was the largest crowd I'd ever announced to in person. So I've been in bigger stadiums, including the Navy Stadium that holds almost 50,000, but actual attendance, butts in the seats, that ended up being the largest crowd I announced to. So that was a cool milestone for me.
Sweet.
And the last thing I want to talk about is it's been announced now that I am going to be a presenter for multiple things at the One Voice Conference USA in August. So I'm doing 2 things. One, well, if you haven't seen, the keynote speaker, and they have a bit of a different trajectory this year, which I think is cool because it benefits me. It's a focus on live announcing and specifically sports announcing. So the keynote speaker is Bill Larson, who is the public address announcer for the Philadelphia Eagles NFL team. And so the whole focus of the conference is bent towards live announcing, and I think that's great. To that end, I am on a panel with Bill and Mike Norgard, who I mentioned earlier, as well as Joey Shalio, who is the WNBA's Washington Mystics announcer, and Sean Heath, who is the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Mavericks announcer. And then there's lowly old me. And it's called The People in the Arena, Sports Live Announce and Voice of God at the Highest Level. So that will be awesome. I plan to yuck it up with Bill because he being the Eagles announcer and me being a lifelong Eagles fan should be a lot of fun. We can piss off everybody in Dallas doing lots of Eagles chants. And then they're a big rival, as you may know or may not know.
Yeah.
And then I'm also doing a free workshop later on the weekend called Batter Up, Live Announcer Workout with Paul Stefano. We're calling it Batter Up because I work for the Nationals, and we're going to be doing live announcing with feedback from me, your professional announcer of the day. And if you want to learn about announcing live sports in an arena or stadium, please come to that. So the conference is August 23rd. No, I have no idea what I'm talking about. August 21st through the 24th. So
To the 24th.
Yeah, Thursday through Sunday. So please join us there in Dallas. So that does pretty much wrap up the VO meter reference levels for both of us. We'll get to Christi's interview shortly, right after our
questionable gear purchase.
So questionable gear purchases, Sean, do you have anything going on?
No, but I'm very, very close. I just got my tax return.
Good for you.
So you guys won't be surprised, but I think I'm going to finally pull the trigger on the new the M4 Mac Mini. And yes, it's shiny new gear, but the main reason I want it now is I keep getting memory bandwidth warnings. My current machine only has 8 gigs of RAM, and I've been using it for 5 years without issue. And to be honest, it still works pretty great, but it is starting to slow down, and I am starting to do more video stuff to promote my own work and to promote GVAA and the podcast. So I think it's about time to upgrade my work machine, and it's a business expense. So
yeah,
and I want some extra ports on this thing. I already use a dock with it, but I'm still plugging and unplugging certain peripherals, and I'd rather just have everything plugged in all the time. So I think it's time to do that. But that's the main purchase for me. What about you?
I may also be looking for a computer because mine sounds like a rocket ship taking off pretty much 24 hours a day. I think it's starting to get bogged down. It's just a lowly Mac. It's a MacBook Pro, but it's a lower spec.
I was going to say use your MacBook as your main machine, right?
Yeah, it's a MacBook Pro just on a dock also. By the way, I have an extra dock if you want one in the meantime. I bought 2 of these Dell docks, USB-C, or I guess it's Thunderbolt, and it worked pretty well, but when I first bought it, actually, both of them have the same problem. I use the VGA output on this old-ass monitor I have in the booth, and there's like a discoloration, like everything has a purple twinge to it. So I bought one thinking the dock was bad and bought another one. I mean, a total of like $10 for each one. And it turns out they're both the same.
Oh, wow.
So it's just something with this particular driver in this old Dell dock. But if you want one, it's got all the ports I possibly need, and I'll send it to you because no one else is using it. Just let me know.
Cool, tempting. I actually, it was Rachel's birthday this week when we recorded, so I actually got her a new PC. And I'll tell you though, it's like there are times where it's just like, I mean, it's the wild, wild west. I have no idea what to do. They all come from China. They all have like the same chassis, and they just have different names, and like they can be as cheap as like $150 or like equally expensive to Mac stuff. So I'm just like, why can't you just be a Mac person like me so I can just get you a Mini? But anyways, I try not to do the Windows versus Mac so much, but I've been out of that world for so long. It's so hard to be like, how does this thing work?
What is this? How do I turn it on? Yeah, like the old man.
And it sucks as someone who's like relatively tech savvy to feel so out of their comfort zone. But
yeah, I hear you. Well, so I may be buying a computer, but we'll wait and see how that works out.
Do you think you'd do another laptop or a desktop solution?
No, definitely a desktop, a Mini, or maybe even an iMac again, because I do like that all-in-one solution. It's pretty cool. But we'll see.
I keep going back and forth because it's like, I don't know, and I think I talked about it before, but it's like if you want your primary machine, or if you're going to use one machine for everything, maybe something like a MacBook Pro would be good. But I kind of divide things between my home setup and my travel setup. And a Mini and a MacBook Air has been wonderful for that. Although I might get, if I do update the laptop, I could probably benefit from a larger screen. Like 13 just feels too cramped these days.
Yeah, that's true. Especially when you get older and you start wearing bifocals like me.
That's the thing. It's like everyone in my family needs glasses. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, that's on the computer front. It's not quite happening yet, but we may have a big announcement on, at least for a sponsorship, on recording spaces. So Studio Brooks, unfortunately, is not able to renew their sponsorship with us. So we are on the lookout for a new booth sponsor. If anyone's listening and wants to contribute, let us know. I am in talks with a few companies already, and we'll see how that goes. But we will let you know soon if that changes and if there's any changes to one or more of our recording spaces. So stay tuned on that.
So that wraps up this month's questionable gear purchases. We'll get to our interview with Christi Bowen right after these messages.
Walgreens, because it's flu season, and you live in a place with doorknobs and handrails and, people.
We tried booking a vacation rental on one of those other websites. They don't always tell you everything.
The stars take it to the red carpet.
We are back live from the red carpet.
California leads the way for change in America, and so does Kamala Harris.
Rated M for mature. Claire Redfield.
And who exactly are you?
So, yeah, what hashtag should I use to describe a grown man in a tuxedo wrestling a goat?
And prior to 1933, many of them belonged to a variety of political parties that were now outlawed in Germany.
This is the story of how Q got curly. Quinn was crazy about curls. Curly fries, curly straws, curly-haired dogs.
Hey, Jay Michael here. Thanks for listening to the VO Meter podcast. It's one of my favorites. If you're looking for a great demo like the ones you just heard, check out jmcdemos.com for more information.
In these modern times, every business needs a website. When you need a website for your voice acting business, there's only one place to go. Like the name says, voiceactorwebsites.com. Their experience in this niche webmaster market gives them the ability to quickly and easily get you from concept to live online in a much shorter time. When you contact voiceactorwebsites.com, their team of experts and designers really get to know you and what your needs are. They work with you to highlight what you do. Then they create an easily navigable website for your potential clients to get the big picture of who you are and how your voice is the one for them. Plus, VoiceActorWebsites.com has other great resources, like their practice script library and other resources to help your voiceover career flourish. Don't try it yourself. Go with the pros. VoiceActorWebsites.com, where your VO website shouldn't be a pain in the you-know-what.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the interview portion of this episode of the VO Meter. Today, we are pleased to welcome Christi Bowen. Now, Christi has over 30 years' experience in voiceover and video production. Christi graduated from the University of Florida, where she fell in love with writing, voicing, and producing local radio spots. After graduating, Christi worked in the commercial production department of a major cable company, where once again she wrote, produced, and voiced many of the local TV advertising campaigns. Her course shifted to film and TV production for a number of years, including working in Hollywood on the movies Galaxy Quest and Patch Adams. Christi worked her way up to becoming a TV producer with a Nashville, Tennessee company, with the Department of Defense contract to produce TV and radio public service announcements for the military overseas. While there, she won 9 Telly Awards and a regional Emmy for her work. But voiceovers were always Christi's true love. Getting back into full-time voice work in 2011, Christi has developed a roster of clients all over the world and on many types of projects, from commercials and corporate narrations to e-learning modules and phone systems. She specializes in e-learning and also has a passion for political and automotive advertising. Her clients include L'Oreal, Walmart, General Mills, AAA Auto Club, Quaker Oats, IKEA, Philips, and many more. Christi's awards for voiceover include 2 Telly Awards for non-broadcast voiceover narration, a W3 Award for online video, nonprofit, and 2 W3 Awards for best use of voiceover. She's also a 2-time Voice Arts Award winner for outstanding political announcement, Attack Ad. One of her proudest achievements is being the founder of a voiceover training school and recording studio called Tennessee Voiceover Studios. TNVO Studios offers premier training to voice actors using the 3-star method of performance, business, and technical mastery. Christi is also the co-founder of Tennessee Voiceover Exchange, the meetup group in Nashville for voice actors. With over 80 members, the group has been meeting monthly for over 12 years, bringing world-class instruction and information resources to voice actors in Middle Tennessee. And recently, I was actually a presenter there, so thank you for that. So please help us welcome Christi Bowen.
Hi.
Everybody together.
Yeah. In the back. Christi, it's so great to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Our pleasure, and long time overdue. For those who don't know, Christi has long been a friend and friend of the podcast, so we're great to have her.
Yes, yeah. Very excited to be here with you guys.
Awesome. Us too. So we talked about it a little bit with your bio, but I'd love to learn more about how you got started in the business.
You know, it's kind of a strange thing. So back in college, I worked for the radio station and, thinking I wanted to be a DJ, but I hated it. I really did. I liked writing, producing, and voicing the spots. That was way more fun. And I ended up becoming the assistant production director and then the production director interim for a while because right as I was getting ready to graduate, my boss decided to move on. And so they were like, oh, we need a production director for a little while because it was also summer, it was coming. And so most of the students go away during summer, so they needed people. And they were like, hey, do you want a job? So I graduated on a Saturday, went to work full-time Monday morning. So
Wow.
It was pretty awesome. Fell into that, did that for a while until they found the full-time production director they wanted. But I liked writing and producing and voicing the spots. That was so much more fun than being on the air to me. And so when I got the job in Nashville after I graduated at the cable company, I ended up pretty much, doing the same exact thing. We just added video to it. So, same thing as far as going out and filming stuff, but then I would come back and we would edit them and I'd write the scripts and I'd voice a lot of them that was appropriate for, my voice was appropriate for, and just really fell in love with doing that. It's what I love doing. But then went on to do a few other things. I get mentioned in my bio, did a lot of film and video and kind of stepped away from voiceover mostly focused. Did it sporadically throughout. I was always the person who was made to answer the phones in different places or do voicemail recordings for everything. That was always something that people had me do. But I ended up working on that big contract with the Department of Defense, and I would randomly do some of the, voices for those voiceovers as well. And as that contract was ending, I just become a mom and everything else. And I thought, I don't really want to do production anymore. 14-hour days on set, and really not sure where your jobs were coming from next. This voiceover thing sounds really great. Because, of course, we all know where our next job comes from every time.
Totally stable.
Yeah, exactly. Totally safe switch to genres there. Yeah. But I thought, well, I just didn't want to deal with the production aspect of things anymore. And I thought, let me pursue voiceover again. And so I got training again and just kind of got back into it, checked out the, current landscape because it had been a while since I had done it, things had changed a lot, and got back into it that way. My boss came in one day. I'd already been kind of working on it. I'd gotten my demos. I had been put myself out there online with my own website and with on the pay to plays at the time. And my boss comes in one day and says, "Hey, so the contract is ending and your last day is going to be November 30th." And I'm like, "Okay." And this was like in September. So I had plenty of time to know that. And I was already ramping up my voiceover stuff on the weekends and nights anyway. And then they switched me to 4 days a week. So Fridays, I was at home all day long and I just did voiceover auditions and everything I could do, reading and being part of everything and doing lots of auditions on pay-to-play sites and everything else. And, then when he comes in to tell me, "Hey, your last day's November 30th, December 1st, I kind of went to work full-time voiceover and just kind of kept going and never stopped.
What a great
That's how I got in.
That is so cool. And I wanted to touch on something before we get too far from it, but you mentioned all of this work producing and writing scripts and sort of all of the background production elements that many voice talent might never touch in their careers.
Yeah.
But I'm curious how that experience influenced your voiceover delivery and performance.
I think what it does is it helps me understand a little bit about what the writers and or the producers are needing and wanting and why they're trying to get, why the scripts are written a certain way and maybe what they're trying to get out of the performance. Gives me a little bit more insight into that because when you're writing things and you know the whole history of the production and the project and you've heard what the end clients are really trying to get at and they want, and then you go craft that into the message, that I think having that background really helps you tap in a little bit more.
Well,
and
we're always
some of the
talking
visuals.
about, sorry to interrupt, but we're always talking about trying to find the writer's voice. So I imagine it's a lot easier when you are the writer and you know what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. That definitely helps sometimes because, when you are, because you hear that message in your head and then when you open your mouth, it's like, well, yeah, that didn't sound right for me to say it, but I can hear it in somebody else's voice, or, and that's sometimes the way it works, or sometimes, you're maybe writing for a particular type of person. Because I did a lot of the writing for things for the military-related contract we had. And so hearing that in a very different voice than mine, I must say, many times, it did help me understand, trying to write for other people and different sounds and different authority levels and different presentations and everything else. And that just helps me kind of get out of my head sometimes and think about it from somebody else's point of view and perspective, which really kind of gives me sometimes a little more insight, and sometimes I can't get out of my own way. So it's not a silver bullet, I will tell you. It's helpful, but it doesn't mean you're going to book everything.
I'll tell you where it helps me, and I didn't do any professionally, but I wrote for scripts in college, and it's mostly for my coursework, and then working for the radio station in college as well. It helps me learn, or I know just from that experience, how long a script is going to be when I'm doing it as a voice actor. So if I can look at the copy and say, oh, this is not 30 seconds, or this is not going to be 60 seconds, it's either more or less. I just know that by looking at the amount of copy because of the experience. I know it's helpful for other people who have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. It really helps you hone in on why the words are chosen, especially when you get to the national level. Every single solitary word, the A's, the ands, the these, the us, everything, every word has been meticulously gone over, not only for legal purposes, obviously, but also because it has to fit in the rhythm and the flow, and also for time. And, if they don't want a rushed local sounding spot that is trying to fit in, 4 points because they only have, the amount of time to buy one spot. So they want to cram everything about their business into one radio spot or one television spot. So they overwrite the script when it's a national spot and they know exactly the one thing about that product that they're really trying to hone in on. They can use different words, and those words are so highly fought over, and it really gives you that sense of, yeah, now I see why they wrote it this way. Now I understand what they're trying to go for. So it helps.
Now, do you ever still use some of those skills? I know I do. Every once in a while, someone will ask, can you write the copy and also produce the entire spot? And I do every once in a while. I think it's still fun to use those skills. Do you find that to be the case for you too?
Sometimes I do, yeah. Especially when it comes to telephone systems and stuff. I do a lot of producing of of adding the music and doing all that kind of stuff. And, and sometimes I will massage their copy a tad with their permission. I have one very good client I've had for 13 years now. And every now and then I'll say, guys, can I offer some script help with this? And that's all I have to say. They're like, yep, go for it.
Right.
I don't have to tell them what it is. They just know that, that means I'll polish it to a little bit more of a conversational speech or the way that they would prefer, that it actually come out. And sometimes they don't proof what they send me. They're in a hurry and there are mistakes in there. And if I read it word for word, they'd be like, yeah, can we fix that? So I just fix it to begin with. Now, I would never, ever do that if I didn't know the client so well, ever. So for those of you listening, don't ever change the copy unless you get permission or and when
I was
you do.
going to say, you go about it very diplomatically.
Yes, you have to be, it has to be very diplomatic. Or, hey, I noticed in this sentence, it seems like there may be a word missing. Or, I just see this seemed like it was a little confusing to me. Can you tell me if this is how you want the script read? And then, I go from there. And it's always like, I'm confused, not them.
Yeah, I work with a lot of international clients. So sometimes you have translation issues or sometimes it just it's correct, but it's not natural speech. So it's just if in the best interest of your American speaking audience, can I make these changes, please?
Yeah, exactly. It's always with the caveat of I'm trying to help you, but not calling you silly for writing it and missing words. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The writing sucks. Can we do something about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. So
yeah, definitely. So you talked about your transition from the full-time production to voiceover. I'm wondering what your biggest challenge was in the beginning. And then a follow-up question, because I know this is the case for you. Do you ever have people, and we're around the same age without disclosing too much, do people ever come up to you, like old friends from either college or high school, and say, wow, you really should have started doing this earlier, and then think, yeah, thanks, buddy, that's not helpful now, but I appreciate the thought.
I'm trying to think what my biggest challenge was. And this sounds terrible. I'm not really sure what my biggest challenge was. I think because I just kind of went into this with, well, okay, I did this. That's over. Now I have to do this. It's my job. And I'm just going to keep going forward. And I've got blinders on. And it's like that's the path. I have to go down that path. I have to go that way. I have to go that way. And I don't really, it's like, oh, there were flashing red signs. And I was like, yeah, I kind of missed that. I'm going to keep going. And so I'm not sure. I think,
I call that too stupid to know any better.
Right, exactly. That's probably it. I was too stupid to know any better. And I just kept going forward. And I didn't really, if they were challenges, I didn't notice them. Maybe some of the technical stuff, but not much because I had been around. I'd sat for, probably years worth of my life in an edit bay watching, people edit. Yes, it was video and everything else, but I would watch them and listen to them doing things and then go up to the audio sweetening studio and listen to what they were doing. I could kind of see what editing was, but I think I made some mistakes early on, not learning certain things that I could have done better to help with my sound and also just the editing practices. Those were some of my challenges in the beginning. But yeah, I think, maybe some branding issues were probably some things in the beginning. Not really sure where I stood and what I wanted to do and where I wanted to focus, I think was probably it. It was just like, I'm going to audition for anything and everything and just take the work and not worry about, usage and not understand what that means. And I'm just going to do things and I'm going to, work for these clients. And maybe I should have actually stopped and asked more questions. And some of those, I think those were some of my biggest challenges in the beginning. It was just like full steam ahead. I was going to do it and I was going to do everything. And I went to every conference I could and met everybody I could. And I just kind of scattershot everything. And it was like, maybe I should have focused a little more. I think that was probably my biggest challenge in the beginning.
I'm definitely guilty of that scattershot approach. I just wanted to learn everything and everything.
Yeah.
Or anything and everything. But actually, you kind of touched on this, and this segues nicely into our next question. But how has the tech really changed in this business since you started?
Wow. For me, it was all because I never lived in LA or New York or anything like that or some of the bigger cities. I was always, at a home studio. I have seen it get better and easier. I had ISDN for a long time, and it was, trying to get a tech in Nashville, Tennessee to understand what the heck ISDN was and try to install it. There was one guy literally in the entire city, and then he retired. So, and I moved, and then I couldn't get it again because I called him up and I asked for the guy. They're like, yeah, he retired. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And now how do I get it? That's been one of the big deals. I've seen that change. But also just, the accessibility of it, the great things like, Zoom and, Source Nexus and Source Connect and everything like we're using and all that kind of good stuff. Just the connectability and luckily the ability for people to not say, oh, well, you're in insert flyover city here. You're not in LA or New York, so we can't hire you. That's changed a lot. I think also the editing programs, the different DAWs and things that are available, and even just the different connections that you can make with clients have changed so much. And even the way the pay-to-play sites work. I mean, the internet has just changed everything. And as it keeps increasing, it's changed a lot. It just seems like things are so much easier. Even things like Canva, believe it or not, something like Canva to be able to create your social media information and, logos and designing things to put out there. That used to be so much harder. And like updating my website to put my, demos on. You couldn't have this responsive design, nice website that worked on my phone, which worked on my tablet, which worked on my computer, Everything was so much harder and took so much longer to do. And even then it was seen as revolutionary and great and so much faster. Now that seems like that all took forever. And now
might as well be carving into a tablet.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it has changed a little bit. I think it's given people a little more freedom and access to present a more professional face to their business much faster than it used to be. I think that's one of the things that's really changed a lot since I started.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember reading a book on HTML coding in my spare time in 2001. And it was so difficult to even get one page of a website done on your own. And my first voiceover website, 15 years later, I did in like 3 days with Wix. And it was not that complicated at all. It's just revolutionary. So that democratization of technology has helped people across the board, I think.
It really has. It really has, because I've noticed that, just talking to people, oh, how do you get a website? How do you do this? How do you do that? I'm like, oh my goodness, the ease in which you can do it. I mean, I launched a website one day in an hour and a half. It was like, amazing. Okay, I needed to create a website. And I just, went to voiceactor.com and did all the things, put everything in it. And was like, okay, done. It was like, bing. I was like, that was easy. When was that? Where was that when I started? And I had to rely on somebody else. And then I had to change my demos, and I wanted to change some of the wording. And I got this great new client I wanted to talk about, and I couldn't change any of it myself. And you're like, it was just so much harder to do those things. And now it's just there. And even, like I said, even things like Canva to make your social media fun and different and adding things. And you want to put a picture up there and you can crop it and change it and do all these beautiful things. And, you put it on the internet and you're like, hey, look at me. And, you can do those things so much easier now without having to go through so many challenges.
Yeah. I mean, not needing to hire like people to do business cards or your website or graphic design, like you said. Like, I'm amazed with what people are doing with their resumes and their one sheet on Canva. It's so cool. And I really need to move away from just Word.
I did mine on there and I'm like, that looks pretty good, actually. It's amazing how that part of the creativity of our business can come out. I've always loved doing that kind of thing. When I was producing commercials and producing, the spots and working in film and video, the art direction part of it was always fascinating to me anyway. So I love that. And I kept thinking, well, if I ever lose my voice, maybe I'll become a graphic designer.
Oh, cool.
So that's always been a very interesting part to me of it. So that is kind of one of those things that I'm like, yeah, this whole Canva thing is really kind of cool,
Always falling forward, huh?
Exactly. Exactly.
But that's awesome. But anyways, so we touched a little bit on some of the genres that you regularly do, but I'd love to learn more. What are your primary genres?
Right now, I do a lot of phone systems and on-hold messaging, commercials, especially at the local level. I do a lot of automotive commercials. I've been doing political on and off for a while. That's kind of ebbed and waned as, styles and things have changed. I love to do e-learning. Still doing a fair amount of that. It has slowed a little bit, but that's also partly because I've wanted it to slow a tad, but I love e-learning. I really do like to, learn at the same time as, I like them to pay me to learn. And I've been doing some live announce. Mostly it's voice of God work more than, it's the recorded part. I did one big live announce job where it was, actually live as things were happening. And it was really fun. I liked that. And that's something I'd really like to get into a little bit more, getting a new demo done in that area. So that hopefully will open up some possibilities and some doors there. But yeah, those are the things I've been doing most. And a lot of local style local commercials. Yeah, automotive, political, e-learning. Yeah, those are the ones I like the most. Those are the things I really want to do and focus most of my work on.
Awesome.
Oh, and corporate narration. Yeah, lots of corporate narration.
Okay. Well, the live announce is near and dear to my heart. So
oh, yes.
Hopefully you'll get more of that because it is an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fun area.
Yeah, I would agree. So let's transition a bit because we talked about how you've done some coaching, or a lot of coaching actually, and you are now the proud owner and founder of Tennessee Voiceover Studio. So tell us how you got into coaching and then how you transitioned that to TNVO.
Sure. So I got into coaching because of the e-learning thing, really. It started with VO Atlanta. I was asked to present there and did that one year. And then a couple of years later, Gerald asked me to be the team lead for the e-learning area. And I kept getting asked over and over again to, hey, could you coach me in this? And can I hire you to coach me? And so it started with the e-learning coaching, really. Started doing that a lot more. And then co-founding and then leading the meetup group in town really lent a lot of that. For, people were constantly coming to me asking me, hey, how about this? How about that? I want to know more about how to get into the business. And it wasn't always just coaching as in for performance. A lot of it was answering just general questions about what rate should I charge and what is this Source Connect thing? I don't even know what it is. And, just the general questions of business itself and being a voice actor. Leading the meetup group really kind of made people constantly come to me all the time. And then, coupled with the e-learning coaching, I was spending a large amount of my day doing both of those things. And people in the meetup group were constantly asking for, hey, or I had great friends that I met at different conferences coming to town. Can we borrow your studio? We need a place to record. I'd tell them 2 or 3. They're like, no, we can't go there. We've already asked. They're booked, or their rates are too expensive, or, oh yeah, we know so-and-so, but they, they're not available. They don't rent out their place. So between all of those things kind of happening all at once with the coaching and then the studio rental, it just kind of led me to start Tennessee Voiceover Studios. I wanted to kind of, change things up a little bit. I've been doing this for a while, and I thought, well, let's maybe lean into this coaching thing. Maybe this is where I need to go with the next step in my business, and opened up the studios basically to train, the large influx of people that were moving to Nashville that were constantly hitting me up asking me about voiceover. And I just saw a need and tried to fill it. I also had run into a friend of mine that worked at the building I'm in now is called Film House. And that's where I worked for 12 years on that Department of Defense contract. And I had run into one of my friends at a party for another mutual friend. And we were talking about it. He's like, we rent space out now. You should come over to the building and take a look at it. See if there's a spot that'll work for you. And I found a space in there, and the rent was reasonable. And I kept having these big dreams and thinking, well, let me try it. I did. It has not been all fun and rosy. There have been days, but just trying to share information. And I have lots of other voice actor friends that have come along to help me coach and lend their expertise, because there's a lot of stuff that I am not, I don't feel comfortable coaching, and especially like the technical stuff. We have people that do that for me that know way more about that than I do. And also, like I've had Paul on teach a class for live announce, and, just reaching out to industry folks to say, hey, we'd love for you to, be a guest and lead a class about X, Y, and Z topic so that we can, share that information with the people locally. And then, because we do it a lot online as well, anybody from anywhere is welcome to join us. The studios is really basically a labor of love. I've had a lot of really interesting people in Nashville come into the studios to record voiceover. We kind of set ourselves apart that we are voiceover only. We don't do any music. We don't do any, music production. It's just strictly for spoken word. And that's a little different being in Nashville because, there's a studio literally on every block. Everybody has one in their homes. I have people contacting me going, I bought this house and it has a studio in it. Can you help me set that up? I mean, it's just the way it is here. And there are hundreds of people. I mean, I have students in class. Yeah, my husband's a musician and blah, 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 blah. And you've got all these, this great equipment. Or I had one girl in my class go, my dad gifted me this blah, blah, blah microphone. I'm going, girl, do you have any idea how much that's worth? Mm-hmm. So it's just a very interesting town to be in with that. But it is music. It's geared towards music, which is a different animal from what we're doing. They're similar, yes, but they are different. And the studios, is kind of founded to just focus on, spoken word. And so many people were running up against the fact that, there are studios, but either A, they weren't available, and or B, they were, $350 to $400 to $500 an hour, even for a voice actor to come in for 30 minutes to record an audition or a job. And it was prohibitive. So I've tried to set us up differently to just focus on voice actors. And we get them. The studio rental business I need to kind of do more of. But we've had lots of studio rentals and it's been great and met some wonderful people that way. But the other part is the training for the voice actors here in town or the people who want to become voice actors. And it kind of sprung out of my coaching from e-learning and it's gone from there. I really focus a lot on the business of voiceover. It's all that stuff that most people don't talk about. You get your coaching from people who are very, very knowledgeable and have been doing certain types of performance coaching for years, or they specialize in that genre and they do the performance coaching. And when they get your demo, you're done. What's the rest of it? It's like, well, how do I do an audition? What do I label the audition if it doesn't say? What do I charge for this? What's my best way to keep my instrument healthy? What's vocal health going to do for me? Or what are studio etiquette best practices? Like if I go into a studio, I don't know what that means. What does it mean they want a directed session? What is a directed session? I mean, all of that stuff that nobody ever really talks about, except for Larry, very sporadically. I've been trying to put all that into one, I try to constantly bring all of that knowledge to every session we ever teach for everything. That's one of our founding tenets.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. Those are like the primary pillars that every aspiring or working voice actor should try to satisfy. And I really appreciate that comprehensive view that you take for it. Really, I mean, you have such a resourcefulness to you, and you always have your kind of your finger on the pulse and what is available, what resources are available, and which ones you can offer to your voice acting community. So I'd love to hear from you for your perspective as a voice actor and as a studio owner. Where do you see the future of voiceover in the next 5, 10, however many years?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball for this one. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. I think AI is definitely a factor right now for a lot of people when it comes to, trying to figure out which genres they might want to go into to maybe future-proof themselves against AI. And that there's nothing wrong with that. I think we all should be paying attention to that because I think there is a lot of work being lost to that. But I also see, a lot of other things being created. Ooh, studio owner-wise, that is a little difficult because I think that so many people are able to build things in their home that sound decent enough that the studio rental business may wane a tad as people can do it from home. But I think people will always be interested in doing this job, especially since it's become kind of a Hollywood darling in many ways. And there's so much out there that people can hear people on. If you start paying attention, they're like, oh, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. How do I do that? So I think people will always be interested in finding out about voiceover. But as far as a performer goes, I wish I had more of a future-focused mindset at this point to think about that. That's a hard question. I do think live announce is something that, probably isn't going to go anywhere because it's called live announce. It's called live announce, and people still like to hear people live. And, somebody's always willing to pick up a microphone at some event and start talking, those kinds of things. And I think being willing to explore that and work on your feet and being able to be impromptu and okay, speaking in public situations, especially if you're an introvert, which a lot of people in this industry are, those things might be something to look into and figure out how to be comfortable with it, because I think live announce won't go anywhere. I think certain genres are probably going to be eroded a little bit by AI, or just kind of wane in their necessity of being recorded by a human, unfortunately. But then there will always be companies that need and want humans. Gosh, I think some of the genres are going to keep going always. There's always going to be animation and video games. And documentaries and things like that, because people just love entertainment. They want to be entertained. There's a lot of stress in this world. There always has been. And, people want to be kind of suspend reality and belief for a little while and escape into whatever makes them happy. And for a lot of people, that's video games or anime or animation or documentaries or television. And I think that's always going to be around. We have to hope that the A-list Hollywood folks of the world don't find that this is the best genre and the best thing to be doing instead of being on camera.
Hey, they already got animated features and endorsement deals. What else do they need?
I know, exactly. It's like we need to keep them out of this, and that way let us journeyman voice actors still have jobs. But I don't know. I'm not sure what else could be created, but there is a lot of stuff. There's so much tech stuff is going on all the time. I don't know. Maybe some evolution of training, whether it's e-learning kind of stuff. Training is, now that Zoom is kind of here to stay, a mix of hybrid, that kind of thing is possibly coming even more. I don't know. I think they're trying it and it's failing, but I wish I had a crystal ball and had a better answer.
Maybe you need to learn mocap for e-learning. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah. Mocap is definitely a growing area. I know. And that's really fascinating.
No, that's a perfect answer. Nobody knows for sure, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's always good to get differing opinions on where we think it's going to go. It's good to hear that most people are not doom and gloom, even though some people are. The majority of the professionals we talk to have a similar answer to that. I'm hopeful. I'll be okay. We'll be okay. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think cautious optimism is a good stance to take. Granted, there's going to be like a loss of accessibility or a bottlenecking of opportunities and stuff like that. But if you think about it, this used to be a very, very small niche with like dozens to maybe a few hundred people doing it. Now, it's still exponentially greater than that, but it might be more difficult, or you might need a more varied skill set in order to be successful.
I agree. And I think that's what, I think looking at everything perfectly rosy or everything perfectly negative is never going to serve anybody. Everything's in moderation, right? Mm-hmm. So I think knowing that, hey, there are some genres that have potential problems and pitfalls with AI being the new darling, but AI is going to probably, it's going to come and go, and maybe it'll get better, maybe it'll get worse, maybe some things will be completely taken over for a while and you won't see any of that work. And then all of a sudden they're like, so that we tried AI and it didn't work. So hi, we're back. Okay, great. Let's hope so. Or it may just be, well, we went AI, we're staying that way. Okay, great. You just have to know and pay attention to what the pulse of things are happening out there and figure it out. Move, if you were doing a ton of e-learning and now half your clients are gone because they say to you they're doing AI, well, pivot from e-learning into something else. You just have to be willing to not get yourself into a hole and say, okay, what else am I good at? What can I do now? Who knows?
And contraction may be a good thing. Sean's said this a number of times, but I know you being a sports fan,
yes,
the analogy that there's no good pitchers in baseball because there's too many darn teams. So if there were less teams, the pitching, some would lose their jobs, but the remaining pitchers would be much more higher quality.
Exactly.
And it's similar in voiceover. I see it every day, people selling all their gear and getting out of the business. So I think that is happening.
Me too. Me too. I agree. And, it's weird being in a position where I'm training people who want to do this job. I will be completely honest with you. In my VoiceOver 101 class, which is kind of the introductory for people who are like, oh, I've been told all my life I should do this. I'm straightforward with them. I am nice. I am not a hard, mean person, but I am also, guys, I'm going to tell you completely straight up. This takes time. This takes money. It is not easy, and not everyone can do it. And I say that just like that in every single class. Prepare for this to take 6 months to a year for you to even get started. If you want to go buy a microphone and start talking for money because you think it's just talking, this is not the right industry for you. That's not what this is. And maybe a third of the people I, see in those classes, I've never seen again. The other 2/3 might dabble in a couple of classes, and some hit, full steam ahead. And the other third, they are just full steam ahead, and they are in all the classes, and they are making it, and they're working, or they're getting close to it. They're getting close to their, their demo status and getting ready to go. But, there's always that 1/3 that are just like, yeah, okay, I thought that was going to be easier and totally different. All right, I don't want to do that. That's not my lifestyle. So
No, absolutely. I think it's very important to be transparent because there is no guarantee of a return on your investment. So you have to be very passionate about this in order to take that leap.
Yeah, you really do. And I see people at all different stages of this. I see some people who maybe did it a long time ago and life circumstances changed for them. And so for a number of years or a number of, period of time, they had to either step back, take a break, do different things. And now they're like, that's what is my passion. And that's what I want to do. So now here I am back again. And, they're going to be a little further ahead than the people who've never done anything and have no clue about it. They just like video games and animation. I get a lot of people who come to me that really, that's what their exposure is. And that's great. And that's their dream. And I'm like, I am not going to quash your dream. However, here's the reality of looking at that as a dream. And they're thankful for me just saying that. And some of them want to keep going with that. And I think that's wonderful. And I point them in the right directions. And I give them multiple, I'm like, here are the places you can go to try to do the things you need to do, And we are not the be all and end all. I recommend so many other coaches and programs all the time. And I'm completely transparent with everybody. We can't offer everything. I don't want to be everything. We do what we do. We stay in our lane. We have what we have to offer. And I'm more than happy to share tons of resources to other things in this industry because I think more information is better than me hoarding information going, nope, you have to study just with us. You can't go anywhere else. We are everything and it's our way or the highway. I don't believe in that.
Well, listeners, I was going to say, listeners, that's a sign of a good coach in a studio, someone who is upfront honest, knows what they do well and will teach you that, and also has the resources to recommend others when they're not a good fit. That's the sign of a good coach.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, to me, it's more about doing what's right for the person who's trying to get into this business. Yes, I am a business owner and I do need to make money to keep the business going, but I am not one of those people who's like, oh, no, you have to do it here and you have to do everything my way. Hey, I know a way to do it. And I have other people that also have their, ways of doing things that work with me. But hey, I am more than willing to say, if you really want to do X, then go see, Y and Z, because they're going to give you what you need. It's more about making sure that everyone has the right resources and the right information. So if that's what they really want to do, then their life is going to be better for seeking out those resources. I can lead the horse to the water, but I can't make it drink. It's like, here's the information. Now you do what you want with it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And that's why I try to teach the performance, the business, and the technical are all three equal pillars. And if you don't look at every single one of those and realize that they're all equally important, then it's like a stool with only two legs. It's not going to stand up. You have to have minimum 3 legs, and those are the 3 to make a solid foundation. And that's kind of where I go with things. It's like, well, okay, that's great that you want to do this. Don't forget, I need to know about this and this and this as well. So, yeah, that's who we are at the studios.
Yep. You want to sit down, not use a pair of stilts. But
yeah, exactly.
Very, very well said. Christi, unfortunately, we're almost out of time. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Like Sean said in the beginning, I don't know what took me so long. Part of it, honestly, was a little bit of intimidation. When I first met you at that first VO Atlanta, I thought you were a superstar, and I still think you are. Obviously,
Oh,
I've told you
thank
how much I admire you as a business
Superstar
person.
status confirmed.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you guys.
And then we sort of became more friendly over the last couple of years, and I kind of just forgot about it, honestly. So I apologize. We should have had you on way long ago, and I'm so glad we did today.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I'm happy to be here whenever, however it came about. And
Honestly,
I agree.
Like your advice and just your personality is a very valuable asset to our listeners. I keep returning to this idea of resourcefulness, like not only you recognizing what resources you had available and taking advantage of those, but making yourself an incredible resource, not just to your local Tennessee talent, but the voice acting community at large. So I just wanted to say thanks for that.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. I appreciate what you guys do for the industry as well, for this podcast, and just everything you guys do, for, in general. Because, again, I'm fangirling here, too. Very excited to be a part of it.
Well, before you go, please tell us, where can people find more about you and your work, either as a performer, coach, or studio owner?
Sure. So 2 places. My personal website is Christi, CHRISTI, Bowen, B as in boy, OWEN.com. So ChristiBowen.com. That's for my personal site. And the studio is at TNVoiceOverstudios.com. And there we have, we've got a nice resources page on the studio's website. It's got lots of great links to all sorts of different wonderful things out there in the industry. Talks about coaching and demos and classes and what, upcoming classes we have. We've just launched our Directors Nights and Agent Nights again, our Directors Series and Agent Nights. So we've got lots of wonderful people coming up for those. Those are virtual. If you happen to be in this area, we've got lots of great in-person classes, and all of our classes are available virtually as well. So no matter where you are or where you're listening from, we'd love to have you, come and check us out and see if there's something we can help you with.
Sounds great. Thanks so much again, Christi, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Great. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
How many times has this happened to you? You're listening to the radio when this commercial comes on, not unlike this one, and this guy starts talking, not unlike myself.
Or maybe it's a woman that starts talking, not unlike myself, and you think to yourself, geez, I could do that.
Well, mister, well, missy, you just got one step closer to realizing your dream as a voiceover artist, because now there's Global Voice Acting Academy. All the tools and straight-from-the-hip, honest information you need to get on a fast track to doing this commercial yourself.
Well, not this one exactly.
Classes, private coaching, webinars, home studio setup, marketing and branding help, members-only benefits like workouts, rate and negotiation advice, practice scripts, and more. All without the kind of hype you're listening to right now. Go ahead, take our jobs from us. We dare you.
Speak for yourself, buddy. I like what I do.
And you will too when you're learning your craft at Global Voice Acting Academy. Find us at globalvoiceacademy.com.
Because you like to have fun.
All right, so thanks to Christi for coming on the show. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. I don't know why we waited so long. I think a little bit was just familiarity. So I do talk to her quite a bit, both at conferences and, like I said in the interview, I did a teaching course for her a couple of months ago. So it just kind of didn't cross my mind that she should be on the show as a guest, but she's a fantastic voice actor and business owner, and I'm so glad we had her on the show finally.
Yeah, I mean, she's got such a great head on her shoulders and just a great attitude about like, oh, I don't know this, I should learn this. And like always thinking about kind of all of the relevant skills that she might be able to use and apply to her business, and just how she's built such a community and has made such a resource for the VO community. So it was a pleasure to catch up with you, Christi, and thank you so much for being our guest. So that pretty much wraps up this episode of the VO Meter.
Measuring your voiceover progress.
We're putting together our recording schedule for the next few episodes, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening to this episode of the VO Meter. To follow along, visit us at www.vometer.com.
We'd also love to hear your comments or suggestions for the show. Or if you have a questionable gear purchase, tell us all about it on our Facebook page or on Twitter at the VO Meter.